Fire Emblem Warriors is about to have an American release for the Nintendo Switch and 3DS, and this game takes a different spin from the classic Fire Emblem gameplay style. But does it work well?
Hey guys, my name's Elijah, and today on Rocket Sloth, we are taking a look at
Fire Emblem Warriors for the Switch, but we'll also be taking a brief look at the 3DS version at the end of the video.
Is this game really worth the value? Today we're going to take a look at that and find out once and for all. Let's get into it.
This is actually my first ever Fire Emblem game that I have played. Something about the RPG elements and story and gameplay from what I've seen from other Fire Emblem games never pushed me to actually give those games a try. And sure, I played Super Smash Bros. And was familiar with some of the characters and level designs for that, and I also played Hyrule Warriors, so I was actually really excited to finally give this franchise a chance in a gameplay style that looked a little more appealing to me. So I acknowledged right away that some elements from the story and the characters and the music might not have the same excitement or wow factor, and I kind of equated for that in this review. I don't want to spoil too much of the story, but we get a pretty generic monsters from the other world begin to attack this kingdom, and it's up to our heroes to save the day. The story kind of reminds me of the story from Sonic Generations, as it uses a pretty simple plot to allow the two different worlds to collide together and have, classic Sonic and regular Sonic in the same realm, even though they're different storylines. And they kind of do a similar thing, but on a much larger scale. To be honest, the story didn't really pull me in too much at the beginning, and maybe it was because I was almost expected to know who some of the characters were or what the general way that the world works is, and I can't fault it too much. It's a specialty team-up game, so what else should I have expected? At the beginning, it didn't resonate with me too much, but honestly, this all can be forgiven by its gameplay. Like Hyrule Warriors, the story drives what you do, but it isn't the point of the game. The real point is to develop a game that lets us feel like Fire Emblem, but play like Dynasty Warriors, and it works well here. There's 20 characters in total that can be unlocked through the story mode, which is something that I love in video games. Ever since I played Super Smash Bros. In the 90s, I feel like there is so much more replayability when you can unlock characters by playing the game. It just makes me want to keep playing and unlock the characters. Like for instance, I was really disappointed in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe because it removed unlockable characters and gave everyone everything at once, and honestly, once I played through all the courses, I never felt like there was an objective to playing the single player, where I didn't have this problem on the Wii U because I had to work to unlock the characters. But let's not get sidetracked. I just wanted to underline how special it was to me that there were a bunch of different characters that could be unlocked in this game, and it really makes it more fun. As the story progresses into the main climax of the game, I really started to appreciate the path that it took there, and I think this story, while I know it isn't canon, actually makes you want to go ahead and give the other Fire Emblem games a shot. The gameplay itself is something really fun. Actually, the hack and slash is what really drew me into the game. If you haven't played Hyrule Warriors or Dynasty Warriors, the game faces you off literally against thousands of enemies, and you have to just fight your way through it, and man, it's fun. Landing several combos in a row or building up a special attack really makes you feel like a one-man army. Even though you can assign teammates to go and hold points and help you and the rest of your team out, the game really just makes you feel ultimately powerful. The character art designs are awesome too. I played as Marth in Smash Bros. Brawl and always wanted a game that let me strike my sword like crazy, and this game is kind of set up for that experience, and I love it. This is what I wanted from a Fire Emblem game to play with originally, and it kind of opens the path for me to actually try the other games. The controls, fortunately, are not confusing either, and it was a pleasant surprise for a noob like me. Plus, when you fill up your special attack meter, it's so satisfying to just unleash your raw power onto enemies. The game gives you a lot of metagame too, and that's great if you're into that, but for a more casual player like me, it was pretty overwhelming at first. There's a power tree where you can upgrade certain types of power-ups for each character, and with 20 characters, it's a lot to keep up with. There's also a triangle functionality that apparently is from past games that lets you see how attacks stack up against enemy characters, and you can also assign your teammates to do certain actions like I said earlier. It's a lot to handle at first, and make sure you take the time to learn how to do it right, or else the later part of the game will be much harder. You have the ability to toggle with your resolution and frame rate as well. You can play the game in 1080p at 30 frames per second or 720p at 60 frames per second. I noticed some frame rate drops when playing at 1080p at 30 frames per second when using special attacks, and while it doesn't interrupt gameplay too much, it's just kinda weird, and I hope they can fix that in a patch. I preferred 720 60 frames per second because I like the way that makes the game flow. The environment of the game is nice and it doesn't get too stale. I wish the music was a little more intense at times though. I remember playing through Hyrule Warriors and just hearing the music and the triumph with it got me so hyped to hack through all of the enemies, and I wish there was a little more triumphant type music here. And I don't have that nostalgia connection to the music, but I would have really liked to have music that had a bit more weight to it. Maybe blast one of the songs I would have recognized from the Fire Emblem levels in Smash Bros. For those casual players. Either way, it's a nitpicky thing, so it doesn't really affect the game. There's a lot of extra features as well, which is nice for a game without competitive multiplayer. With these features, it really doubles or maybe triples the playtime of the overall game. There's history modes where you can chain against specialty fights, revisit battles from other games, and you can add and drop different types of features like only include characters from certain games. It's different, but it's great for people who are fans of the Fire Emblem series, and it's great for post-game content. It can get repetitive after a while, but easily it will add an extra 20 or so hours to the game once you complete the main game, and that's great for a post game. And there's also split screen co-op mode, which is a really nice feature that I forgot to record, so here's some gameplay from the Japanese version. Sure, there's a little bit more frame rate drops on the split screen, but honestly, just the fact that they've given us this ability where you can play with a buddy, I will forgive any frame rate issues considering they're not game breaking. This review is based off of the Nintendo Switch version and not the 3DS version, but I did watch a lot of gameplay from the 3DS version after playing the Switch, and it looks okay. It's not like Smash Bros for the 3DS versus the Wii U comparison at all, and I mean, if you don't have a Switch but you really want the game, I would say go for it, but it does look like it's a step up from Hyrule Warriors for the 3DS, and it has a little bit more consistent of a frame rate, but it looks like they really watered down the graphics a bit to pull this off, and even then the frame rate still stutters. But the gameplay for the most part looks alright. It looks like most, if not all of the features are ported over, probably no co-op mode of course, and actually the use of the dual screen might help with some of the UI issues that I had problems with earlier. It really looks like some of the time things can get overwhelming on the screen where you might be really confused on what's going on, and the colors are pretty bland. Like I said, unless you really want this game and you don't have a Switch, it's probably best to skip this version and just wait to buy a Switch. Honestly, I'm glad the 3DS version exists, and it mostly stays true to the Switch counterpart, so those hardcore Fire Emblem fans can still experience the game, and if you can get over the PlayStation 1 looking graphics, the core gameplay and story is okay, but it doesn't look nearly as enjoyable as the Switch version. Overall, the Switch version of the game is a great game for fans of Fire Emblems, fans of Dynasty Warriors, or maybe casual fans like me who wanted to get into a different type of game that could introduce them into the franchise. I know that I'm going to be going back and playing some older Fire Emblem games, and I think if this game interests you, you should try it out and then check out the older games as well. But what do you think of this game? Do you think it's unnecessary when a game like this comes out on a handheld console as well? Let us know in the comment section down below. And I'm trying, guys. I'm going to continue to try to do reviews on every main game that comes out this winter. So stick with me if you want, and maybe hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time with a brand new video. Bye, guys.